Welcome everybody to our latest in our monthly series of online events sponsored by the American Physical Society Division of Biological Physics. And we have, as part of our executive committee, an engagement committee where we try to figure out ways to keep engaged with various members and others in the community. And so it's in that context that today's workshop is happening. Super happy to have this organized by our postdoc member of our executive committee, Dr. Mohammed Noorani Dost. So I will turn the floor over to him shortly. But first, let me just say a few remarks. So as I said, I'm Nancy Ford. I'm a professor of physics at Simon Fraser University, which is near Vancouver, British Columbia. And we did get a lot of snow, so this is the view from our campus or something similar to this today. I was asked to share some information with you, and I wanted to just give you some information about our seminar series. So first, if you go to our APS DBIO homepage, if you want to know more about sessions we've run, you can click this workshops and networking button. And you can see the series of events that we have had over the past year since the March meeting last year. And what's nice is that if you are interested in any of these, you are able to read about what happened, but also click on the link to the recording. So if there's any of these topics that sound interesting to you, please do. And as you've seen, we are recording today's session. So the link will be available here for others to find. We have a couple of upcoming events in the planning stages. I think this one for January is pretty much finalized. So it's going to be devoted to mental health in physics. And so I would encourage you to check back here on this page in another week or so. We should have a Zoom link up and ready to go for registering for that. And you should be able to find information about it as well in emails from APS Engage. The other thing we wanted to share with you as members of the Division of Biological Physics community is that APS is launching a new journal, PRX Life. And this is pretty exciting to those of us who are working in the biological physics community because it's really meant to be a high-tier journal. It's going to be a highly selective open access journal. And it's the first interdisciplinary journal that's focused exclusively on quantitative biological research. The lead editor is Margaret Gardell, who's a professor of physics at University of Chicago and actually former chair of DBIO. So PRX Life is going to be trying to bridge the gap between physical and life sciences and really allowing those of us working at that interface a really good open access selective journal to which to submit our work and publish our work. Notably, all article processing fees will be paid by APS through the end of 2023. So for the first year of its existence, it's free of charge, which is pretty nice. And so you can sign up for alerts at this journals.aps.org/PRXLife if you are interested in following the journal. Okay, so that does it for our advertising. And with that, I would like to turn the floor over, or the screen, I guess, over to Mohammed, who will coordinate and moderate today's session.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy, for the introduction. And thank you everyone for joining us. We have a good group of postdocs and panelists here, around 25 people, so amazing. My name is Mohammed Noorani Dost. I'm a postdoc in the Department of Mathematics at Florida State University. Of course, I'm super excited to have this postdoc event with you guys. So we started this engagement workshop series, as Nancy said, last year after the March meeting. And thanks to Nancy again as the chair of this engagement party and other committee members that helped us with this workshop. We had so many postdocs, we had so many events that some of them were related to postdocs, and I really encourage all you postdocs that to go back to our website and check it. We had one that was about applying for faculty positions, one for communicating biophysics that for postdocs that are very important, I think. But we decided to have one workshop just for postdocs, right? Because we said that the postdocs now are in a stage in their life, in their academic life, that they need to network with other postdocs and researchers. And due to the nature of biophysics, we need to be able to collaborate with other researchers from different disciplines. All right. And as a postdoc myself, I feel like it's always challenging for me to collaborate with researchers from different disciplines. Like my research itself is about modeling biofluid mechanics and viscoelasticity. So I need to collaborate with computational people. I need to collaborate with microbiologists, biologists, people in physics. So it's a mix of all. I need to know a bit of all, but of course I know that I'm too young to know everything. So I need to at least know how to talk, right? So that's why we have this workshop to talk about how postdocs can collaborate with each other and also talk about the future career of postdocs, because of course this is a temporary position, and at the end of the day we want to know how to make how to boost our skills and how to stay employed. So that's the reason we have this workshop, and we invited biophysicists from different backgrounds to help us address these questions. So we have three panelists today: Dr. Deborah Fadul from Florida State University, Dr. Yuval Karsbrand from Weizmann Institute of Science, and Dr. Christopher Smith from Virginia Tech. So I'll now turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves and talk shortly about their experience as a former postdoc and their current experience as the current PI or leader working with postdocs. So I think we can go with alphabetical order and start with Debbie. Again, Debbie is the professor in neuroscience and molecular biophysics, and also the director of the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs in the Florida State University. So thank you, Debbie. Please go on.
Hi, welcome. Can everyone hear me okay? Can you see the slides okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So thank you both Mohammed and Nancy for the invitation to participate in this workshop. It's nice to see that other societies are also incorporating postdocs on their executive panels and incorporating them in the design of programming. So Mohammed is our former postdoc association president at Florida State, and he has finished his president duties and now he's senior advisor. So I see he's doing leadership for you guys as well, which is not surprising to me. My own postdoc, I came from a very small marine institute at the University of Florida at the Whitney Marine Laboratory. It is in St. Augustine. It's a branch, but we did molecular and neuroscience as opposed to like organismal type of marine science. And when I was a PhD student, I saw an ion channel more of an electrical current instead of a structural protein. And so I wanted to move more into biophysical type of research. And so I moved from this very small isolated institute to Boston, where I joined Brandeis University at the Volin Center for Complex Systems. And so I went from like a close-knit mentoring environment to now 14 postdocs in my advisor's lab. And I went from, collaborating across 8 small research laboratory to team science. And so during my postdoc, I continued to learn grantsmanship, science communication, building on the idea. That is the purpose of all science, is to uncover ideas. And then I added modern techniques and resources, which I think was pinnacle to transitioning to the job I have now. And it allowed me, one important thing I think is important during your postdoc is to figure out how you're going to be an independent scientist and create a niche for yourself. And so I was able to merge my interest in chemical senses in marine organisms to ion channel biophysics. And the last thing I have in parentheses there is a skill that I did not get, which was business skills. And so I think if you're a postdoc today, I would definitely go for that. So my experience as working as a postdoc mentor, I'm a faculty member at the Institute of Molecular Biophysics and Neuroscience at Florida State. I started my own laboratory with a technician and a PhD student, and then I grew to add postdocs. I feel that postdocs are colleagues in my laboratory. I help structure their priority of their experiments. I have a depth of knowledge in the discipline, but they really have creativity and motivation. And I think that postdocs are a really important career link in academia, because you have undergraduates, you have PhDs, you have postdocs, and then you have a faculty member. And as a beginning faculty member, and even as a senior faculty member, you're not there 24/7 because you have other obligations. And so many in your lab will turn to postdocs as a colleague and as a supervisor. Okay, and so my job is to allow postdocs to be competitive in the skills that they need to be well-rounded. And so this is just a page off my website. I've trained 12 postdocs in my laboratory, and I wanted to state that not a single one had the same career ambition. Okay, so I think it's kind of an anomaly that people think that you're going to train them all one-dimensionally. I've had postdocs go into industry and into government jobs, into state jobs, and to academia, all different types of professions. I'm also our director of our NIH training grant program. We're specialized in olfaction and taste. And we've had this program ongoing for about 30 years. So we expand our alumni networks into postdocs. And then the last slide I have here in terms of introduction is I've been at Florida State for about 22 years. And as I became more senior, I was able to work postdoc leadership across my university. So we founded the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs in 2015. I was the first faculty director and associate dean. I've been able to garner resources for postdocs across campus, expand employment benefits, develop a provost postdoctoral fellowship program, which is a pipeline to increase diversity in academia. As I mentioned, we have a postdoc association that has helped me in many assets of all of these things. We've been engaged in the National Postdoc Association. We've developed travel programs, symposia, ways for postdocs to orally engage, and ways to train them in grantsmanship. And the best thing in my job, I think, is that I get to learn lots of different postdoc cultures, because we've got 50 different departments that have postdocs in them. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Debbie. That was amazing. So now we can go with Eval, that is a professor in the Department of Molecular Genetics in Weizmann Institute of Science.
Thank you, Mohammed. I apologize for my voice. I'm a little bit sick. So I'm an assistant professor at Weizmann. I just started my position here 2 months ago. And before that, I did a postdoc at University of California, Santa Barbara. And actually before that, I did another postdoc here at Weizmann, and this was sort of like a major career-changing event for me, going from physics into stem cell biology. What I do now is I try to build three-dimensional stem cell models that recapitulate morphogenetic events that take place in organ formation. So it's and we're trying to ask questions that are related to mechanics. So it's a combination of sort of bioengineering and tissue mechanics. And so when I was asked to participate, I was thinking a little bit of sort of my choices and how I chose my postdoc, how I chose the projects that I did. And I have a list of a few items that I would like to share with you. They may be trivial, but sort of this is what I had in mind. So first of all, I don't know if it's relevant to people here, but how to choose a lab where you're going to do the postdoc. So for me, the environment, the people in the lab, the PI, the department were the sort of most significant factor. Not necessarily looking for the biggest hotshot in the field. People that I know that I personally can trust, that I feel comfortable with, that I know if things go bad, I have somebody to rely on. I think it takes away a lot of stress from the beginning. That like Debbie said, that you're working with somebody who considers you as a colleague and not so that's the first thing. The second thing is I prefer to work in small labs. I felt that that it gives you more opportunity to communicate with a PI, and also more opportunities to stand out and sort of carve away your own scientific agenda, which you're going to take with you as you start your independent position. And finally, the location. So I did my maybe I didn't mention this. I did my postdoc in UCSB, that's in Santa Barbara. I came in together with my partner who also did a postdoc there. So for us, the place, it looked for us like a place where we can enjoy our life. And again, I think this is a very, 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 very important factor. Don't just run to the big lab in the big name university. The second thing is about the project. So again, this is something that I tried, ended up doing in all of the stages of my career, PhD, postdoc, and try to find a topic that you're excited about, that you don't necessarily understanding, that you can bring added value to the lab. Don't just jump in as sort of a continuation of an existing project. It's not that it's bad, but this is how I worked, and I find the benefit of that is that if you have a project that you can build from scratch, I think you find yourself that you bring a lot of added value to the lab, and it's easier for you to sort of define your own trajectory. I've seen people that sort of try to look for the path of least resistance, and although they're very successful, I took a different approach. So just as an example, when I came in, like I said, I did a first postdoc in Israel. I had I learned stem cell expertise, and then I joined a lab at UCSB. They're interested in morphogenesis, but they're working on Drosophila, and the main tool was light sheet imaging. So I didn't, to be honest, I didn't have like a specific project in mind, but I knew that I'm different enough from other lab members, from the PI, so that I can contribute to the lab and they can contribute to me. And actually, at the end, we ended up doing a stem cell project that was based on my sort of knowledge or capabilities from my previous stages. So try to aim for something big that you're really excited for, and don't be like don't calculate effectiveness. Another tip is to communicate your work, but in a meaningful way. No, don't just like try to I don't know, meet as many people as you can, but try to find people that are in the field that maybe have very different background from you, that can contribute to your knowledge that you don't have. Like, for example, if you're a physicist at the biophysics lab, maybe try to couple with a biology that knows a lot about molecules that are taking place and you can learn from. And also use that to find as many mentors as you can. Yeah, not too many, but I was privileged. I had 2 mentors, official mentors at my postdoc, and there was at least one person from another university that I considered a mentor, and he helped me a lot. And that actually helps you to sort of diverge away from the lab's main expertise, because if you couple with somebody who's expert, say in my case like stem cells, you can rely on him or her in guiding you in a lab that's not a stem cell lab, and still be successful. So communication and mentors. A technical thing to apply for fellowships, as many as you can, small or big, not for the funding, but just for the experience in rehearsing, writing your scientific ideas in a way that will be you could use as a helpful practice for a job application or for grants when you start your PI. I found writing applications for fellowships very helpful to sort of distill scientific ideas, although I was unsuccessful in vast majority of cases. And finally, going back to my first point, make sure that you're having fun, that you're really excited about what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. I know that we're not always privileged to have fun 100% of the time, but sort of the big picture, like at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you feel happy where you are. I think that's very important. If you're not, try to figure out what needs to be changed, because we're not meant to suffer in this kind of situation. And that's it, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yo. That were really good comments. And yes. So yes, we have some questions on chat. We'll go back to this question. But first, let Chris Smith introduce himself and have his introduction, and then I will open the stage to the general questions. You can raise your hand or put your questions on chat. But meanwhile, if you have any questions, just put it in chat box, and we will go back to that and ask them from our time. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Mohammed and Nancy and APS for having me. I am not a biophysicist. I'm a neuroscientist by training. I did do some neuroimaging work, so that does require physics to use MRI and PET imaging. Like Debbie, I manage an office of postdoc affairs. Unlike Debbie, I am not a faculty member with a research program. I'm a pure administrator. But before I moved into administration, I was a postdoc at Vanderbilt, doing research, thinking pretty hard and applying to faculty positions. And I'm happy to talk more about that, should that be relevant. But I think what I'll just kind of hit on real quick here and then turn it back over to Mohammed so we can get to some discussion is acknowledging that the postdoc position is a interesting tightrope to walk, where you're delivering on products, right, to move research forward, but also thinking about your next step, and trying to kind of navigate that space is not easy. So we'll just acknowledge that. But there are a lot of great resources out there. Debbie mentioned the National Postdoc Association. There's tons of great online resources that I would encourage you all to check out. The other thing I would say real quick is, and I think this has become extra hard in, pandemic Zoom world we all live in now, is the importance of having real human connection and conversations, talking to people who have careers that you might be interested in, learning about how they navigated career transitions. I think that can be really helpful as you think about the next step. And also getting involved with organizations and causes you care about. I all mentioned, try not to just always be thinking about the work and maybe the challenges of your work, but how can you give back and have an impact in other ways, in your community, in your postdoc association, et cetera. So I think that's something that served me well as I kind of pivoted to this career path. And again, I'm happy to talk more about that, but I think I'll stop there and let us get into the discussion and engage with the group here.
Perfect. Thank you. So yes, we have more than 30 minutes, and I think it's good to keep it as a Q&A. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand or just unmute yourself and ask your question. If you want to put your question in the chat box, feel free to do that. For now, we have the first question on chat box that this person said, how do you find a good mentor during postdoc that, as you said, could supplement your knowledge? So I think this person is referring to what Eyal was saying about it's good to have a couple of mentors in addition to your official research mentor. So if any of you panelists have any comments on that, please go ahead.
Eyal, do you want to address that first about the mentor, and then I can follow up?
Sure. So in my situation, so to be honest, in my situation, I feel my career path was sort of like sort of a tumbling path, and it wasn't very directed and calculated, but in retrospect it went well. But so the person that I knew, that I mentioned as sort of additional mentor, I knew for my PhD. He was he was somehow friends with my PhD advisor, and I kept in contact with him. I actually considered going to a postdoc with him a few years earlier, and so this is how we got introduced. But other than that, I think additional people that I would consider mentors are people that I just met in scientific conferences. So we started it actually happened in a later stage when the project was more defined and I could present it. And then, as I said, it was sort of in the interface of physics and biology, and I could present it in several biological conferences. And then just from interactions with people in that conference, I found scientists that were interested in the project and were just kind enough to sort of share what they think with me. So that's my experience.
So I have pretty similar, but not completely overlapping experience. The society is a great place to find a postdoc mentor because Ayel mentioned that you have to be interested in the project. You have to, my advisor says it has to be something that burns your midnight oil. So it has to really be exciting for you. And so you're going to find those like-minded individuals at society meetings. My institute also had a board of scientific advisors, and they would come to our small institute and they would give talks. So you got to meet the scientific advisors. In the chat, somebody asked about undergraduates and how do you build community? Because as an undergraduate, you have courses. Well, as a PhD student, you also have courses. And I did a course at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Massachusetts. So I met a lot of faculty there too. So, and then something that you alluded to is ask your PhD advisor. So there's the science that that individual is doing, and it's the institute and the resources, but are they a compatible mentor for what you need as a mentor? And so your PhD advisor knows you really well. And so you can get a cross check on that person's personality through your PhD advisor. And then you had said something about two-career couple. And so we were a two-career couple. My husband does genetics. And so I had to target a postdoc that was at a big city so that there were multiple positions for both of us. Because if you have two postdocs at the same time, then it makes the next stage a little bit easier. And then I also, I had kids at the time. So the advisor that I ended up selecting at Brandeis University, he said he didn't care if I got my results at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. as long as I got them. And so he was very flexible in that way. And so those were all the things that were important to me in selecting a postdoc lab.
I just quickly comment on mentoring. I think, first of all, it's a very loaded term. You could think of it as someone who's helping you on something. So sometimes these could start very informally, right? With just outreach to people doing interesting things whose pathway you admire, and maybe asking advice around, X, Y, or Z, right? Building leadership skills, communication skills, whatever it is. And that may turn into a mentoring relationship, but maybe we don't use the word mentor because that can have a lot of weight on the person, like be my mentor, but more like, I'm interested in your advice or, insights on a specific skill set that you're looking to develop. So I think that's my comment on mentorship.
May I just add something briefly here too? I think they're all really awesome advice. For my situation, when I finished my PhD, I was doing chemical physics, sort of A&O stuff, and I decided to switch into biophysics. And so my supervisor was not a good source of information about potential postdoctoral labs because she was in a very different research area, as was I. And so if you don't have sort of those personal connections already and you're looking to get into a new area, what worked for me was talking to people I knew in my research institute that were doing research in areas that I found interesting. And I kind of asked them, like, who's doing cool stuff in your area elsewhere? Who do you think would be exciting to work with? And kind of got a starting point from that. I was also in a 2-career couple, and so large places, metropolitan areas were the only option for looking for postdocs. But the other thing that I would strongly recommend that you do whenever you consider a position is to talk to other people in the research group besides just the supervisor. So make sure to talk to current postdocs, maybe get in touch with former postdocs. It's very easy to see the shininess of the high impact publications that come out of the lab and go, ooh, that's going to be me. But if there's like 30 postdocs in the lab and 5 of them are publishing those papers, what's happening to the other 25, right? So just try to find out about that and whether the mentoring style and supervision style is the right fit for you, because fit's really important.
Perfect. So I think we have a hand that is present here. Alexandra, I think we have a question.
Hi, thank you. I actually had a question to Chris because so the most obvious path after the postdoc is actually to find a faculty position. But I was wondering if you could say a few words about your administrative position. How did you, like, what is in general your, like, what are you doing, and like how did you find yourself there?
Sure. I'll keep it sort of brief, and just for the sake of time, because it's a long, winding path, Alexandra. I think it's always, sometimes in retrospect, it seems like it was all planned, but often it is not as planned as we think it is. But I think it all started with getting involved in my local postdoc association. So I think that allowed me to first build confidence as a leader. I don't think I considered myself that initially. But I kind of got, more involved in kind of understanding, the different challenges other postdocs faced. I mean, I knew my own experience as a postdoc, but that was, an N of 1, right? And so kind of understanding the needs of the community and starting to build out, programming resources as a postdoc within the postdoc association got me more aware of, like, this is a thing, but that doesn't mean I really thought this was a career path initially. And frankly, it took someone at Vanderbilt sending me a job description and said, have you ever thought about this as a career? So I think it kind of speaks to the importance of networks and people who see you, right, in different aspects of you, as opposed to just you, the researcher, right? And they're, again, kind of engaging, a broader network of people and finding ways to get involved in things that matter to you, whatever those are. And that can sometimes, expand your opportunities, right? Because you'll learn about things that maybe you wouldn't know about if you were just, focused on your research. Which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we need great people to stay in academia and become faculty. But, my experience was I enjoyed the mentoring, and I enjoyed sort of working in an academic setting, but not maybe being the one writing the research grants and managing the group. So in my role now, I do mentor in a way. I mean, I help our postdocs here think about their careers and next steps. And help faculty here, offer their postdocs opportunities and, making sure they're having a positive experience. So that's sort of the high level is I got involved in the postdoc association. People at Vanderbilt that I worked with in the career and professional development groups there sent me a job description similar to what I'm doing now. I applied to that position. It might have been a little bit of a stretch in some ways, but I think I had enough things to talk about to kind of show I was interested in the space and knew a little bit about the needs of postdocs, holistically, and moved into an administrator role first at North Carolina State University. I was there for 3 years, and now I'm in this position at Virginia Tech. I learned a lot in that first role. We could talk about that too. The first job out may not be the job for lots of reasons, but sometimes you just have to get some experience in the space and then move to a position where maybe you feel like you have more resources and support. But again, we could go down that rabbit hole if you wanted. But I think getting involved in my postdoc association was probably the biggest thing that kind of put me on this path. And I feel like I'm making a difference in the world and kind of lean into mentoring, which I enjoy, and less of a running a research group, which the more I was involved, the more I wasn't sure I really wanted to do that. So.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for this information. And I saw that Chris put a link on chat box about online resources through the National Postdoc Association. So I know a lot of institutions, they have membership event to this National Postdoc Association. So make use of it if you have access to it. If no, just ask your institution how you can access to it. And they have amazing things that are happening in National Postdoc Association. So I went to a couple of their webinars, and also they have a event, they have a conference in April that actually I'm attending that. So just check this link and see what's happening. There are a lot of resources for you. So again, if you have any questions, put it in chat box or raise your hand. I see 2 other questions. So let's go with the person that had question. Gumi Gao, if I'm not sure I pronounced your name well or not.
Yeah. You're doing great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, so hi, thanks for all your sharing the thoughts. So one question I have is like, how long would you consider like a cutoff for like doing a postdoc? Because let's say you are kind of like working for like 3 years and now you see something going on, and you think we get a great publication, and then now you start applying, but like after another 5 years and you still got nothing. And is it the right time for you to consider like shifting towards like industry or other kind of career path? Or what is the cutoff time that you considered like when you were a postdoc? Thank you. And any of them, any advice, welcome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I can try to tackle that one if you guys want, and then you guys can follow up. It's really field dependent. So postdocs in the humanities may only need like 1 year, whereas a postdoc in physics may need two different postdocs. And how I've mentored my postdocs in biophysics is it depends on what their research discovers. And so they have to develop a certain body of knowledge, both scientific knowledge as well as their leadership skills. And there's all kinds of transition type of NIH awards like the K99 ROO that help with further mentoring development. So it depends on how much the trainee comes in with in terms of writing and oral and business skills. But I've also done some strong data analysis, because at our institution, we didn't want to have postdocs for more than 4 years, because when we did an analysis, we saw that those that got jobs, like it waned after a certain period of time. And so that was not field dependent. And so we actually have a rule at our institution that if you are a postdoc for more than 4 years, then you need to be promoted to a research assistant professor. You need to have a promotion, or you can write to the provost if you have a reason for going for more than 4 years. So like, for example, one of my postdocs got a postdoctoral fellowship from the American Heart, and it was a postdoc award. So he needed to still be called a postdoc in order to be funded by that position that he was awarded. But as soon as he finished that award, he was transitioned to a research assistant professor, so that it shows advancement. So it just depends on, if you're there for a very short period of time, short being 2 to 3 years, and you've had good success in your skill development and your publication, then that's the time to do it. But then if you don't, then more is expected of you in a 5-year block. Okay. And then even more is expected in a longer period of training. So the ante goes up, I think. Maybe you guys can fill in.
I would like to support, Debbie, what you said. I mean, for me, looking at myself and looking at other people around me, I felt that staying in a position, PhD, postdoc, 3 to 5 years is a good number. And after that, like you said, the curve going down, I mean, it could curve of being successful in finding the next position, or the curve of being successful where you are in the project. So projects that were wrapped up in 3 to 5 were not wrapped up in 3 to 5 years, usually lingered on for many years, and and everybody came out frustrated. Like the student was frustrated, the PI is frustrated. So I think it's not a good environment. What should you do if you're at that position? Then I don't really know, but I mean, I don't know if just trying to change to a different place is a good. I have no idea if it's a good idea, but I definitely know that staying in the place that you are is probably not a good idea. But like Debbie said, I mean, if things are successful and you just need another year for whatever reason, then that's fine. So I agree with this 3 to 4 years rule that Debbie.
So Mohammed, in the chat, somebody wants to be a teaching institution. They want to be at a teaching institution, but they didn't, as a PhD student, get any experience. And so I thought maybe you could address your position right now that you have at FSU, because that is allowing that experience.
Sure, exactly. That's a good question, actually, because it's very applicable to me. I did my PhD in mechanical engineering, and where I was usually in engineering, the culture is different. Like usually you're a research assistant, you don't get a chance to teach a lot. Even if you're a TA, you're a grader, you're not really teaching, and it's just there to help you get some fun, right? But there are some fields that teaching is more important. For example, mathematics. Now I'm in the Department of Mathematics, which teaching is somehow the main thing that like PhD students, postdocs, and everyone else, right? So yes, now I moved to teaching position in the math department. First, I was nervous that I can get this position or not, because I knew that I don't have any teaching background. But I think writing my teaching statement in a way that showed I know how to teach, and I have some background. For example, in my PhD studies, I was a grader, but I was not really teaching. And also I had a certificate in teaching, and these kind of certificates that are designed for being a like how to be a faculty position. So I think if you want to do that and if you don't have an experience of teaching, getting some types of certificate would help you to get these positions. But other than that, going for postdocs in the departments that their focus is on teaching would help to us. I don't know what's this person's field is, but I would encourage you to find a department that they are hiring teaching postdocs, because I know there are many fields that they have positions for teaching postdocs. After that, when you already taught as a postdoc, you are the instructor of the record, so you know how to teach, and people would rely you on more. And like if you're applying for faculty position as a teaching faculty or research faculty, you can show your teaching evaluation. You can say that, okay, this is what I thought and this is how I know teaching. And I see that Chris is also with a link about free online course focused on building teaching skills. So I hope it would work too.
I also had 2 different postdocs that wanted to be at predominantly teaching institutions. Liberal arts colleges like to gain staff that have had a short postdoc, so that they have experience working with like master's students and undergraduates, so they have enough skill that they could create like an R15 proposal. And some individuals also get experience at community colleges as well. So they do a postdoc, but they take on a course at a community college. So.
And I think at least in my institution, it works like this, that in summer, they are looking for lecture. So that would be a good choice for you. So if you are trying to find a position that would boost your skills, your teaching skills, you can ask your department that are they looking for any lecturers for the summer semester or not. All right, so we have more questions coming. There was one question that was left in chat box that talks about Britannia, I think. She's asking that what are your thoughts on taking a second postdoc role? As Debbie just alluded, it seems to be more common in physics than in other fields. What should you look for if you're considering a second postdoc in contrast to a first postdoc? I know Eyal already was talking about his experience as two postdocs, and David also mentioned some parts of that. So any of you that can have more comments on this, please go on.
I'll try to answer this question. I think I would encourage you to take a second postdoc if you think that you're in a strong position, from your first postdoc. So the reason I did two postdoc is, like I said, we're a sort of dual career situation, and my spouse was still doing her PhD, so I was kind of waiting, and then we left together for a postdoc. So that was the sort of excuse, but at the end it led to like a dramatic change in what I did. So it was very, very beneficial. So I think and both postdocs were kind of long. So the first one was 3 years, and the second was around 4 years. But that included the job search, so maybe 3 and 3, like for just like working on the project. So so I was very motivated to go for a second postdoc because for me it was the first. So I would say that if you're happy with your achievement in the first postdoc and there's a specific goal that you have in mind, then I would encourage you to do that. Like, for example, if you decide that you want to go into a different field before, or being introduced into a different field before you start your own lab. And what should you look for? I think it's the same things that apply for whatever you look for in a postdoc in the first place. So first, I mean, the difference is that now maybe you have to be more focused on what you want to achieve in that second postdoc, and really think hard of where you're going to be in the next 3 and 4 years. So for me, for example, I was in a neurodevelopmental lab in my first postdoc. I learned a lot because I had no background, and then I wanted to go back to physics. So I looked for a lab that's in a physics department. That was my main agenda, because I thought that I want to apply for physics position at the end of the road. I ended up in a biology department, but that was my train of thought. So I guess this is my answer.
Mohammed, I can show this. The data are old because I worked up the data after the pandemic, but I haven't posted it on our website. But you can see taking a second postdoc is not uncommon. So this is where our postdocs are going at FSU. So we post this on our website. So it's not uncommon. We have a very large physical sciences on our campus with our high field magnetic laboratory. And so lots of physicists. So having these second postdocs is not uncommon.
Interesting. Yeah, that was interesting data. All right. So, I saw that Nancy put a link about our previous event about life at the POI primary undergraduate student institution. So yes, that would be helpful for people that they are looking for teaching position. Also, we had another event, I think it was in August, teaching biological physics. So that would be helpful for getting more resources about how to teach biophysics. I see one question in chat, but before that, I see Tapan, I think. he raised his hand for a while, so if you have questions, go ahead.
Thanks. Hi. Thanks everyone for taking the time and for all your great advice. All of you sort of mentioned some amount of changing your research focus a little bit from your PhD to your postdoc. And I was wondering if you had any actionable advice of how to go about sort of gaining expertise in the new field that you've just joined, and also sort of finding a new network or building a new network for yourself, because I guess you spend a lot of time in your PhD, where the important labs are, what kind of work they do, and then sort of in a postdoc, I guess you want to do the same, you want to get the lay of the land quicker, right? And I was wondering if you guys had any actionable advice on that. Thanks.
Anyone want to jump in and address this question?
I could tackle Tipen's question. So when I was a PhD student, I worked on marine models and I worked on olfaction. And then when I moved to my postdoc, I was working strictly on ion channels, and I had to learn potassium ion channels. So I had to learn that whole field. And then to kind of merge those two, I kind of did what Ayal did. He went back to his love of physics, going to a second postdoc. And I tried to merge those two fields between the chemosensory and the ion channel to go back to that field. So by having a core of network as my PhD, I didn't lose that network. I just gained another network and then I merged them. And still today, I have like one foot in the ion channel field and another foot in the chemosensory. And I started another field just recently during COVID because our state opened up funding for medical marijuana consortium. And so I'm studying CBD, and I don't know anybody in that network. So I'm starting afresh, learning that network.
Wonderful.
I just want to add that for me, the easiest way is to just talking to other people. So you're in, outside your group in your university is the easiest. So talk to other people, maybe start a small collaboration. I think for me, that's the fastest way for information to flow and for you to find sort of what it is you want to focus on.
Yeah, I agree with that too. About 10 years ago, I formed a collaboration with a nanoparticle expert on our campus. And I wasn't well versed in nanoparticle, but that's how I wanted to do drug delivery in my mice. And so I started attending his lab meetings. I started going to his students' PhD committees, things of that nature, so I could really learn the new field. So, I mean, I think it's not just a postdoc centric thing. I think that's why faculty go on sabbatical, so that we can continually train. We're always asked to continually move to a new field.
And just to add one more little thing, I think like working in shared facilities could really expedite that. So, for example, we had a shared stem cell facility at UCSB. Then you just, information just flows, around you. So it's really, really easy, to learn about new techniques, new papers, new ideas, etc. So stem cell facilities, imaging facilities, those kind of things I think are helpful.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right. So we have 2 more questions in chat, and I think we are almost reaching to 1 hour. So let's address these 2 questions, and then we can conclude whatever we were talking about. So we have a very interesting question that's about when seeking a research niche, what signs indicate you are on the right track? Identifying funding sources, seeing emerging papers on an interesting research question, learning specific experimental techniques, or anything else. So, what do you think is the best way to find you're on the right track or no research one?
Maybe I can try and answer this. So for me, it's when you're excited about your results. I think when you're excited, when you start to grasp stuff in your hand and are able to do an experiment that we were not able to do or did not think about 3 months ago or a year ago. I think then you know that you're on track, at least for educating yourself. Maybe you're doing something that somebody has already done 10 years ago, but I feel that this kind of mastering a new technique, even if you're onto something that was already discovered, would enable you to shift quickly to a new question. So that's the answer for me, the experiment.
Yeah, Morel, I think you're on the right track with all of those things. And I wrote down the same thing. I wrote down the word excitement. It's like intuition. You just know you're on the right tracks. It's exciting. And but you have to sell it. So, talk to program officer, talk to funding agencies. Make sure this niche that you're creating is not crowded. But it's one you think is gonna grow. And does it have a health impact? Those kinds of things will help you think about it.
Perfect. So, and the last question is, it seems good to have a co-advisor, but how to find another co-advisor for your postdoc?
I can try to start again. So I had 2 official advisors. I don't necessarily agree that it's a good thing to have a co-advisors. There's a lot of challenges that I would bring with it. I think it's more, the better structure would be to have one advisor and a collaborator or like an unofficial mentor. So say you work in a lab doing X, and there's somebody else on campus that's helping you gain new expertise, and he can be, you're generating this new collaboration, it's an old collaboration, and then you can get additional input, mentoring, all the things that we talked about. But you're sort of the hierarchy is clearer and easier to manage. At least that's from my. There are benefits of having 2 advisors, but I think from my experience, that would maybe be a better structure.
And I just quickly add, again, an official co-mentor versus someone who is a mentor or, is someone you can lean on. I mean, those are different things. So I think there's nothing wrong with, reaching out to maybe, people who've recently transitioned into careers you're interested in and striking up a conversation. And that may turn into something more formal or not. But I think there are ways to still get support, even if it's not a formal co-mentor situation.
All right. So these were all good advices. Thank you all for asking questions and addressing these questions. So do you have any other questions left from audience? If no, we can go with the conclusion from each of our panelists. If you have any final comments to add, just go ahead and let's close the meeting after. Any final comments from our panelists?
I'll make a final comment that I loved my postdoc years. I know there's a lot of conversations that are going on across social media and across communities and networks, but it's a wonderful training period where you get to come in and every day is a fresh day and you get to do experiments and you're not burdened by lots of different distractions. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful time. And I'm glad that scientists have such an apprenticeship type of training period.
And I'll to what Debbie said real quick and just say, yeah, I think it's all how you frame things. Like we had earlier conversation around like how long is too long. Well, as long as you're building skills that you think are transferable, then I think if it's 5 years of you building skills, that's 5 years of skill building you can leverage for a future career, whatever that is. Now, if you feel like you're not building skills and not growing, then that definitely means it's probably time to make a pivot because you're not advancing, your own development. So I think, leveraging the time you have as a postdoc to build your skills, right? Whatever those are, right? To make your self a more well-rounded person, to leverage the next step in your career. I mean, I think that's the goal, right? Whatever that is. And not forgetting, you're still at, most of the times an institution of higher learning with resources to help you build skills and like leveraging that while you can before you move into a more, I don't know what you want to call it, formal job where there maybe are less freedoms to grow and develop. So that would be my comment. So I agree with Debbie. I think sometimes it's easy to focus on the negative, but I think there are a lot of opportunities to leverage your time as a postdoc to set yourself up for the next step.
And I guess I would like to also support that. I mean, I think there is a lot of stress, like when you come into a postdoc, because you feel it's supposed to be a very short period, like you're clocking yourself from day one. It's maybe like a big personal transition, physical transition from one state to another, one country to another. Many things that could stress you out, and I think don't cave into that. Just try to like close your eyes and ignore those voices and just say, okay, I'm here because I like science and I like to do experiments or computation, whatever, and I'm going to enjoy that. And I think that will increase your chances of being successful.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you Debbie, Chris, and Eyal for being here with us and answering our questions. So happy holidays, everyone, and hope to see you somewhere else, like in our next webinar or in a conference. So if you don't have any question, I can end this meeting.
Thanks to Mohammed and Nancy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you, Nancy, for organizing all these wonderful workshops.
Bye-bye.